Hi, this is Mark Hempel. This interview, a phone interview, was conducted on April 27th, 2013, with James Mahu. And I'm going to kind of cut into it because we were talking about some other stuff that really isn't relevant. So I'm just kind of giving you this heads up that it's going to feel a little bit like you just suddenly dropped into a conversation, and you kind of did. So, but it's a pretty long conversation. I think we went for a good hour and 20 minutes, or maybe even more than that. I kind of lost track. But so, at any rate, hope you enjoy it. One of the main questions, James, that I think most people have, and it's kind of a naive one, I realize, but I'd like to hear your view on it anyway. And that's, what's the purpose of this whole thing called humanity? I mean, why can't we just get along and live together in some form of relative harmony?
Mark, have you ever seen the show Dancing with the Stars?
A couple of times. I'm not a big fan of dancing, as my wife will happily tell you if you ever ask.
Well, the Spaniards love dance. It's a cultural essence. Anyway, to answer your question, I'll use a metaphor. And in that metaphor is the concept of the show, Dancing with the Stars. The show pairs up experienced professional dancers with inexperienced celebrity dancers, although it's debatable how much of a celebrity they are in many instances. But for this sake, let's call them celebrity dancers. On each show, one pair is eliminated until a victor is revealed on the last show. So with that framework established, imagine that the entire Earth is a dance floor. On the one side of the dance floor, you have the celebrities. Now, to be reasonable, these celebrities are not necessarily famous. On the other side of the dance floor, you have experienced professional dancers. So the celebrities, well, they're the old guard. In a way, they represent where humanity has come, our past journey. They're the part of humanity that lives dominantly in the left brain, the reptilian brain, the ego personality, the temporal shell. They live to enjoy, but also to fear. So this group, as you might imagine, is concerned with scanning their environment and seeing threats, problems, analyzing their environment, seeking to solve problems, structuring their world in conformity, towing the line. So they prefer to fall in line, to be part of the story of three dimensions, be successful, acquire things, be a cog in the wheel, and try their best to not rock the boat. On the other side of the dance floor, we have the professionals. They represent where humanity is headed, its future. They're the part of humanity that live primarily in the right brain. They're more intuitive, heart-centered, creative. They're the part that is seeking the tone of equality and oneness. They have a sense of the energetic fields, that ocean of energy that we all live in. They're the change agents, so by definition, they rock the boat. So you have these two groups roaming the dance floor called Earth. The music, the thing that makes these two groups begin to dance and interact, is the subtle vibratory fields that our solar system moves through as it conducts its grand cycle around the galactic core of the Milky Way galaxy. This music, if you can call it that, is bringing all of humanity together. It's bringing us all together in this dance. Now, at this stage, it seems awkward, the dance, that is. Are you with me so far?
Yeah, I follow you. Are these two groups similarly sized?
In terms of ratios, there are about 650 celebrities to each professional dancer. However, it's not simply that these are two groups. This dichotomy or duality also pertains to the individual as well.
Okay, there I think you lost me.
Well, within the individual, one person, you have this dance floor at a microcosmic level. Remember, we live within a holographic universe. This is why ratios play such an important role in this whole dance. But I'll get to that later. For now, think of yourself as a dance floor. On the one side, you are a celebrity. You have a reptilian brain, your left brain. You're a survivor, a logical conformist. These are not bad things. I'm not labeling celebrities as bad and the professionals as good. You need both to have the chemistry. It is the ratio of their presence in the decision making. That's the critical point. On the other side, you have your soul, heart, right brain, higher mind, intuition. When these become activated in your life, and by this I mean you summon them through the practice of the heart virtues, you can reach out to that part of you that is a celebrity, that part that is hard-coded into your human instrument, that scans the threats, that tries to survive, that is ego-selfish, that sees 3 dimensions and nothing more. You're dancing internally. So you have this dichotomy, this duality, and it's all inside you. In the same way, it is all outside of you on the larger stage called Earth. So your local universe has this dance floor, as does this non-local universe, the Earth part. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Back to the Dancing with the Stars metaphor. Who are the judges?
Well, before we get to the judges, let me explain one more thing.
Sure.
The professional dancers teach, not only by words, but by behaviors. They show the dance moves. They exhibit the movements or practices that come from the heart and soul. They show the creativity of the right brain. They don't preach it. It's a demonstration. Part of this demonstration is to accept the awkwardness of their celebrity dance partners, either outside themselves or inside themselves. The celebrity part of humanity is crystallized into behaviors that have served them well in the 3-dimensional world. In order to dance with the professionals, they must be willing to accept the new behaviors, the new movements, and really listen to the music, to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
This requires a remodeling of their belief systems, something that is not easy for a large percentage of the human population, half of whom subscribe to a world religion. So the professional dancers must have compassion and understanding. Patience helps too. Otherwise they get impatient themselves and frustrated, even angry. This is true with the individual as well, but it's directed at themselves. It's a form of a self-judgment, even ridicule sometimes. So this dance is going on in the non-local universe and the local universe at the same time. The professionals within themselves are feeling this dichotomy of the new guard and the old guard, the right and the left brain, the intuitive and the logical, the soul and the body, the heart and the ego. But these are the 2 dance partners. And when they become entrained to the music, the new guard shows the movement, practices compassion. The 2 can dance as one. Now, to your question about who judges this, who are the judges? In the local universe, it is, of course, you. You are judging the quality of the dance. Who leads? Who steps on the toes? Who brings down the quality of the movement? You are judging this, and often harshly.
Why? I mean, why do we do that?
Because once you're activated, you know your energy. You know your energy before you're the body. And you know this energy is connected and linked to everything else in the non-local universe. It's a being of unity, and its union is through love. So, when you fall down awkwardly or step on a toe, you judge yourself as being a klutz. But as I've said many times, this isn't about perfection. It's about practicing the movement or the heart virtues to the best of your abilities in the moment. The dance floor is not always smooth. The 3-dimensional world has pitfalls and traps. Everyone can stub their toes against it. Health issues, physical impediments, relationships, work stresses, financial constraints, all of these inform the dance floor upon which you dance. Some dance floors are bumpier than others, but if they are, you slow dance. You move a little more carefully when you hit a bumpy dance floor, but you can still flow. Your movements can still be graceful. Mm-hmm. You can still practice the heart virtues, even on the dance floor itself.
Well, what about the non-local universe, James? I mean, who are the judges there?
There are 2 groups of judges, one for each side of the dance floor. For the celebrity dancers, their group of judges is made up of religion, business, government, culture, politics, who all frown on the dance in the first place. But if it has to be done, then let the celebrity dancer lead the dance. And that's their perspective. Let it be logical, rational, and in accord to the prevailing beliefs of the organization or institution. As for the professional dancers, they're judges. They come from cultural creative elite and spiritual gurus, the authors of best-selling spiritual books, the ones who tour the world dance floor and provide commentary on how best to live as a spiritual being.
Are you or the Wingmakers judges?
No, we're not judges in any sense of the word. The professional judges are trying to cultivate the light worker, New Age, and Enlightenment communities. They are the ones who are the perceived leaders in these communities, providing a sense of what's practical and possible. They've become the judges in the sense that they believe they have particular knowledge of how to be a spiritual person, free of the constraints of religion or the historical mind. They don't necessarily see themselves as judges, but if they profess that to be a spiritual person, you must use this technique or follow this practice, then they are in some ways a judge.
But isn't that kind of what the Wingmakers do? I mean, they talk about the 6 heart virtues or quantum pause or things like that, and they encourage practicing these things?
The distinction is that we're not known. No one sees us. You could call us invisible judges, but then if you are invisible, how can you be a judge?
Mm-hmm.
Also, we are trying to build organizations. We're trying to increase ratios of the presence of the professional dancer to continue with that metaphor. You see, anyone can be a professional dancer. They can be a member of the government, the Catholic Church. They can be a Muslim, Hindu. They can be in prison. They can be a communist. They can be a hardcore scientist. It doesn't matter if they are part of the quote-unquote Enlightenment community or not, or what they profess as their belief system. What matters is that they consciously radiate the virtues of their heart, that they transmit compassion, understanding, humility, forgiveness, and so forth through their behaviors. Often the best professional dancer is the simple person without any alignment at all. And by alignment, I mean to a belief system or an organization. The unaligned person simply holds fast to their intuitive belief in the supremacy of the heart and soul. And because of this belief, they can receive and transmit this frequency of equality and oneness. This isn't about knowledge. Someone can be extremely knowledgeable about the historical mind and spirit. They can have the equivalent of a PhD in spirituality, but they can be in their head. And because of this, they may dance to the music of a lesser frequency. For the unaligned individual, their alignment can be with the frequencies of love and compassion, not to organizations or personalities, not to governments or political movements, not to religions or spiritual organizations. Thus, professional dancers can come from anywhere, and because of this fact, there really is no one who is equipped to judge. There are those who try, though. The movement of the heart-centered life is not owned by any organization, nor is it the province of the Wingmakers. It is an ancient thing, and well before humanity began on this planet, this dance and the ratio of celebrities to professionals across all domains of the material universe has existed. It is intuitive, but only to those who have opened themselves to the professional within.
Yeah. And how does one do that?
Nihilism is a powerful dance move of the celebrity dancers. The left brain and the reptilian brain see that life, if not meaningless, is at least something to fear and navigate through to lessen disappointments, problems, and inconveniences. They propose that the universe is compassionless, that God is a figment of the right brain. It is a mirage, and to dance to that music is pointless. For many people, as they grew up, it was a choice between religion and nihilism. The thought process was, I can be a believer or an atheist. But the real world is much more complex. It's always about ratios. It is a mathematical certainty because we are energetic beings, not material repositories of cells, muscle, bones, tendons, organs, and blood. So we're not islands of organic materiality. We are collectively an ocean of energy. So ratios mean everything because of this interconnection. To see ourselves as beings composed of energy, of fields of energy that intermix with everyone else, and that this intermixing includes the energy fields of planets and stars and galaxies and the universe as a whole. This is the reality model that science is bringing to humanity. Now, this model can be adapted to fit into the nihilist belief system, an uncaring, godless universe. It can also be adapted by religions and spiritual belief systems as proof that the universe is an outgrowth of a caring and creative force called God, or Allah, or Creator, or whatever word you choose. The first step is always the activation of the professional dancer, to have a sense of it, no matter how vague, to begin to touch into it and bring it into a sharper focus by practicing what flows from your heart in the form of intuitive intelligence, behavioral intelligence, and simplicity. I personally believe that the practice of the 6 heart virtues is a good way, but everyone can find their own method. As I said before, the path isn't owned or operated by anyone, because, and somewhat paradoxically, I suppose, it's an individual's path to interconnectedness. There really is no other way.
Yeah, you said earlier, James, that there were about, I don't know, I think it was 650 celebrity dancers to every professional dancer. So as ratios go, that seems like a terrible ratio. How do you see hope in that?
It isn't about hope, Mark. It's about the empathy of a single individual operating in alignment and resonance with the universe. The ratio of 1 to 650 is part of the equation. The other is the sheer number of humans that are incarnated on the planet at this time. What's been called the shift by a lot of people is precisely the shift in the ratios coupled to the larger population of humanity. We're nearing 12 million people on the planet who are able to transmit these ultra-fine frequencies of the heart soul, and to do so consciously, regularly and unconditionally.
Is this why you wanted to produce the event temples?
Not really. You see, the numbers are one of the things that people get attached to. If only 10 people are present in an event temple, people will attach a success-failure stature to the event. I know I've said this before, but it isn't about the numbers of coordinated effort. It doesn't need to be coordinated or controlled or channeled or synchronized. It already is by the universal being of which we are all part. There can be 10 people in an event temple and 10,000 others spread around the globe that are doing a similar practice at that point in time. It all contributes to the outpicturing of the higher dimensions and to this one, the one we collectively call Earth.
Okay, so how does it contribute, James? Or maybe more precisely, what does it contribute to? Because you just mentioned an outpicturing of the higher dimensions to Earth. Is that what it's all about, the heaven on Earth concept?
Well, it's not so much that heaven is brought to Earth, or even that the higher dimensions are downloaded to all humans. It's more of an experiment in time. Time is the vehicle of the consciousness of humanity, much like the human instrument is the vehicle of soul. So time creates the appearance in three-dimensional realities that the consciousness of humanity is evolving, that it evolves as it moves within the galaxy and the universe. Think of it like this. The Earth revolves around the Sun, the solar system revolves around the galaxy. A galaxy group rushes inexplicably towards what astronomers call the Great Attractor, and the universe expands at an amazing rate of speed. We don't really know the extent of the mystery that extends beyond this structure, but we know it extends, continues to expand. And throughout all of this, from the smallest to the largest, space-time is the vehicle that makes evolution look like a linear process, a journey in space-time. There are other domains of consciousness that operate outside of our four-dimensional construct of space-time, where time slows down or speeds up or ceases to exist altogether. The higher fields of consciousness, where humanity is one being, this is a different form of space-time than anything on Earth, and yet this is the space-time we are headed into. When Earth arrives in this space-time, we, all humans, will feel it as a visceral experience that will reshape our attitudes and perceptions of what constitute the meaning of humanness. Will transform as one being, and yet every expression or projection of individuality will remain sovereign. This is the sovereign integral state of consciousness, the highest dimensional consciousness that is known within the human family.
So, does this mean that humanity evolves depending on its positions in space-time?
Well, yes, in a way. If Earth were in a frequency or energy pattern of the universe that was of a low frequency or lower frequency, then the life forms living on Earth, including humans, would reflect these lower frequencies in their behaviors and attitudes. But if, on the other hand, humanity and its spaceship Earth were in a higher dimensional field within the universe, these higher frequency energies would activate new behaviors and attitudes, more consistent with the heart and the human soul. This is why the Wingmakers look at space-time as an essential element in the equation of oneness and equality. The human family is inextricably linked to the cosmos and its position therein.
It kind of sounds like astrology for the human race. Is that what you're saying?
I can see where you draw that conclusion, Mark, but it's not really the same. It isn't so much about the position of planets relative to one's incarnational beginnings or Earth. It's more about the position of Earth as a spaceship orbiting the galactic center and the galaxy traveling the universe. Nothing remains static. Change is always occurring. The tempo of the change, the degree of the change, the oppositional force to the change, all of these are modulated and created from the cosmic influence. This cosmic influence can activate or deactivate influences within the human instrument, including the DNA, brain chemistry, heart, endocrine system, and other organs, you see. The fields are the only way that the universe intelligence can operate on an entire species. So, for example, a cosmic field can interact with a solar field, and the solar field can interact with the planetary field, like Earth's geomagnetic field. The Earth's field can carry this cosmic information within it, and it will interpenetrate every human being, and even every animal and plant. Everything on the planet, in a sense, is bathed in these fields. This is going on constantly. Positions in space-time are carefully orchestrated by source intelligence. These positional coordinates are not arbitrary or happenstance. They occur as an outgrowth of an intelligent process, coordinated by first source or creator. And they create the opportunity for evolutionary jumps. Some will take advantage of it, some will not. The difference is in their belief system, their ability to adapt and modify their beliefs, their practice of these new beliefs in their lives. Let me give you an example. Everyone has had this experience where they were hurt by someone. A relationship flares up and anger or frustration overtakes the person. They are in a specific space-time when the hurt occurs. They cannot forgive the person in that space-time. It's almost impossible. But in an hour or a day, they're in a different space-time, and forgiveness is now possible. If you could say that the memory weakened, and that was the reason that forgiveness was possible, or maybe the person apologized, and that made it possible, well, there is some truth in there. But it's really that the shift of space-time makes it possible, and the new energies that penetrate us. Again, nothing is static. Those who never forgive, they lock or anchor themselves into the space-time of an event, here in their mind. They've lost their ability to flow with the spaceship Earth, to see how space-time is fluid, how energies of the cosmos dance within each of us, how we are constantly changing, because we are fluid energies in constant flux relative to space-time. I know that was a long answer. I'll stop there.
This question may be off base, but I wonder if you could talk about why the professional dancers don't just dance with each other, and ignore the celebrity dancers.
It's actually a fair question. Let me answer it this way. Many of us are activists at heart. We feel passionate about our beliefs. We will defend them. We'll stand up to anyone who wants to change them. We'll resist those who try to sway us. However, at the same time, we're also kind of insecure in our beliefs. Activism is a form of alignment. Save the Whales is a group that is aligned around that premise, for example. If this group, Save the Whales, only talked with marine biologists, they would be singing to the choir. Their activism would be met enthusiastically, wouldn't change a thing. So it is with professional dancers. If they danced with one another, they would dance more beautifully, perhaps, but they would not have the impact. They would be less activist and more artistes in nature. So spiritual activism is not about teaching with words. The dance is made to the music of the Creator, and this music is always changing. There's not one measure that repeats. The dance is made of attitudes and behaviors. So we demonstrate our behaviors, not as machines, but as humans with all our humanness intact. We practice our heart virtues, not perfectly, but humanly. We're humble supporters.
James, I'm going to kind of switch the topic a little bit to kind of focus on your novels, if you don't mind. Your new novel, The Weather Composer, has a focus on Iran and the Islamic culture. In particular, one of their prophecies about the Mahdi. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, The Weather Composer, it's a large story, and will probably require several books to tell it. And yes, it begins in Iran, centering on a 12-year-old boy named Taran Khan, who was raised as the Mahdi. The Mahdi, in terms of Islamic prophecy, is the successor of Muhammad. He's also known as the 12th Imam. There are many different prophecies concerning the central figure of Islam, and they vary a bit depending on Sunni or Shiite orientation. But in general, they see the Mahdi as incarnating at the end times to essentially rid the world of evil and convert the world to the one true religion. In The Weather Composer, Taran is he's like a reluctant Mahdi. He was born on the eve of Sunrat and raised as the Mahdi because the prophecy was specific about this condition, that he was born on the first day of the end times.
Maybe you could explain what Sunrat is in the novel.
Sunrat is a term for a cataclysmic event triggered by a solar flare of enormous power. This flare was potent enough to change everything on Earth. Taran was born at this precise time when the solar flare touched the Earth, and I say touched, but scorched would probably be a better way of putting it. Sunrat changed everything, and by almost every standard for the worse. So the story shows how a remote tribe in northeastern Iran, known as the Balakian nation, come to believe that Taran Khan was their Mahdi. It would be similar to how the Dalai Lama is found as a young boy and then taken from his home to be trained in the rigors of the role he'll play as the spiritual leader for Tibet. The story is seen through Taran's eyes as he runs away from his village in order to seek an education. In a way, he's trying to distance himself from the role of being the Mahdi. He's very gifted intellectually, but the spiritual leader of the Balakian people doesn't want him. They don't want to lose Taran, so they send a rescue party to bring him back. As Taran gets to a city called Mashhad, which is the second largest city in Iran, he finds the school, and they immediately discover his intellectual gifts. I should mention that this post-Sunrat world, all nations are unified under the greater nation, so it is one world. And the language and culture they're all homogenized. All of the schools are wired to a central office in Denver called the faculty. And here they test every child and slot them into a social role. There's no more country borders. There's only one government, and that's called the greater nation. So into this world, Taran walks, completely naive about the way the new world works. The faculty identifies him as having an ultra-high IQ and sends in an extraction team to bring Taran to their Denver facility. But there ensues this a bit of a tug-of-war between Taran's tribe and the extraction team. I won't go into the details of the various plot structures, but I think I can say that for those who like action adventures, this book will provide plenty of action.
As someone who's read an advance copy, I would wholeheartedly agree. I think of all your writings, this one is the most gripping from a plot perspective, and it's actually kind of tense and riveting. And from the people I've talked to who also read an advance copy, they all kind of comment the same thing, that it's really kind of a page turner first, and has some sort of spirituality as spice almost, but it's really a riveting book. And I think I'd also say that it's a pretty big departure from your previous book, Quantusum.
Yes, I suppose it is. Though it was not a conscious thing so much as a way to perhaps interest a new or younger audience. Quantusum and The Dormant Prophecy were both esoteric books, as novels go at least. The Weather Composer leans more toward the mainstream. It's less esoteric in some ways. The sequels will make up for that. This first book is mostly a way to introduce the primary characters and the larger plot structure that will unfold in the next two books.
Was there a particular reason you chose the setting of Iran and Islamic culture as the focus?
It was simply necessary to tell the full story, and since Darren is the key character to the whole story, he was born in the high desert of northeastern Iran. It's required in this setting. So it was important to tell the story of a young boy who was raised in the shadows of a prophecy. He was not someone who sought this responsibility. It was thrust onto him. There have been many who've claimed to be the Mahdi over the centuries, but their claims have always been disputed, and their missions were largely egocentric. I wanted to have this reluctance in a boy who had his own vision, and that vision was not aligned to the vision of his nation, especially its religious leadership. This was an important part of the plot. The story will take on a very different arc in the sequel, the second book.
So it's official that there will be a sequel to this book. When will the sequel be released, and can you tell us anything about it?
Well, I'm not really sure if it's released. I would say early 2014. As for disclosing any information about it, I would prefer not to at this time. I feel that most readers would prefer to read without knowing too much about the plot, so I don't like to talk too much about my novels for this reason.
Anything else you'd like to say about The Weather Composer, Book 1?
I believe it will be out very soon online, and sometime this summer as a physical book, I believe. I'm planning to release it online on the Sambola platform, and as a physical book, it will be released like my other books through Planet Work Press. I'm using Sambola as the online platform because it's more advanced than the Spirit State site. I'll release it on Spirit State too, but probably after the Spirit State site is updated.
One thing I've noticed, James, is that the latest books are not as involved with images and music and so on. Is this a trend in your creative process?
I don't know if I would call it a trend, but it's a reality of time. I can concentrate on the writing because the story requires this. Some stories call out for other media to help tell the story. Others don't. The collected works of the Wingmakers will be released this spring, and it will certainly have a significant amount of illustrations, but that was all part of the Wingmakers project. The Weather Composer and Quantusum, for example, those are stories without illustrations or music, so it varies. I continue to compose music daily. I continue to do art as well. I even write poetry, but I've chosen not to publish these. Perhaps sometimes in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, I know some writers are nervous anytime they write about the Islamic culture, especially if it touches on Muhammad. Do you have any concerns that this book could cause a negative reaction from Islamic quarters?
I realize this is a problem for some artists, and I remember reading just a few weeks ago about a Turkish pianist who was given, I believe it was a 5-year sentence for tweeting some unkind words about the Islamic faith. But I think his sentence was stayed. You see, this might have less to do about Islam and more to do about the Turkish government wanting to send signals to its artistic community. Artists are often the ones who speak truth to power. They're often professional dancers, back to our metaphor, because they operate from the right brain and they are more intuitively connected to their muse or higher selves. They tend to be anti-authoritative, and they can get into trouble with governments that seek to control their image. For myself, the way I presented Taran Cohen, it was done with great respect for his heritage and culture. So no, I don't expect any concerns.
Well, since we're on the topic of books, do you want to talk about the collected works of the Wingmakers?
Well, about 5 years ago, I had asked John Burgess if he would be willing to organize the various Wingmakers materials and provide introductory commentary to the various sections. It was a very large task, but John, I'm happy to say, was willing. And he completed the vast majority of the effort before he passed away. Darlene, his wife, she took up the charge of completing the task and working with you and Tony. Sorry, I forgot his last name.
Yeah, Saxon, Tony Saxon.
Yes, well, you two have put the artistic elements to the book.
Yeah, well, credit goes to Tony, really. He's done all the heavy lifting on the inside of the book. And given that these two volumes collectively are about, 1,500 pages, that's where the real work is. I did the easy part. I just did the covers.
Tony's done a remarkable job. As you know, I reviewed the last iteration of the Volume 1 about 2 weeks ago and was very impressed with the overall book and how it's developing. It's a deliberate process, and the ultimate product will be of very good quality. I do think that any spiritual seeker will find its content to be a valuable resource to their studies. The other thing that will surprise most readers is that Darlene, as the publisher, has committed to publishing the book in color throughout. So all of the graphics and artwork can be shown in their full color. This is an expensive proposition for printing, but she's been steadfast in getting this done, and anyone who knows the Wingmakers materials understands that the material has a very strong color component, so the volumes will be artistically rendered, and the vibrational quality of the material will be heightened as a result.
And just for the sake of anyone listening, the collected works of the Wingmakers will be separated into 2 volumes, and they will be physical books, so I'm not sure if we'll do a digital version of them or not. That's, I think, yet to be determined. The first volume, I should say, will have the Ancient Herald project book, the Neruda interviews, the art, the poetry, music, philosophy. Gosh, I almost forgot the philosophy. The Lyricus materials, glossary, indices, and lots of footnotes. John Burgess was a stickler on footnotes. And then Volume 2 will contain more of the recent writings and papers. Each volume about 750 pages, and as you said, in full color throughout. So Volume 1 will be released in the June timeframe of 2013, and Volume 2 will follow, but I don't think Planet Work knows the release date for that yet. Maybe late summer or early fall. For anyone who wants to keep on top of that, they can register at wingmakers.com, and then we'll send you an update on release dates, or you can go to planetworkpress.com website and check there. I'll also keep some kind of an update on those things in the What's New section of the Wingmakers website. Having been intimately involved in the production process of the collected works, I can't wait to get it in the hands of fellow readers. I think they're really going to enjoy it.
One thing I forgot to mention, Mark, is that while these volumes are good resources to learn about the Wingmakers materials and really understand the intricacies of how they all fit together, the seeker doesn't need them. I know that's not what my publisher wants me to say, but it's true. Everything I've written or produced in my life relative to this project called the Wingmakers is really, it's a prompt or reminder for those who already know the material, who already know the way to their soul but have gotten distracted. So all of these materials are simply there to remind you, in a sense, divert you from your distractions and nurture that part of you that really doesn't get nurtured very much by our current culture. You see, the first volume is more focused on the mind, the belief system that the mind holds or becomes attached to. The second volume is more focused on the heart. In a way, these are 2 sides of the same coin, and the coin in this case is the embodied soul. Most people consider the mind as the sight organ, and the heart as the feeling organ, but the heart is more tuned to sight than feeling.
You're saying that the heart has eyes?
Not as we think of eyes, of course, but yes, it has vision. It sees things. We sometimes call this intuition or insight or precognition, but the vision is a heart-based quality. It's not the mind or brain or eye-brain system. They tend to get the credit, but it's the heart's vision. All of these works that I've been involved with are designed to help people see this 2-sided coin and activate the heart's vision. once that activation is made, they're on their way.
All right. I'd like to change the subject if I can.
Yeah, that's fine.
I know you've talked about the MEST universe before, which is the matter, energy, space, and time universe. One of the things I don't understand, James, is that you've talked today about space-time, but you haven't gone into the same detail about the other two elements of that acronym, energy and matter. How do those all fit together in terms of the puzzle we call the three-dimensional world?
A MEST is an acronym for matter, energy, space, and time. Some call this the four dimensions of existence within three-dimensional space. Now, as I said before, it's very easy to think we are stationary, static beings in terms of our space-time. But nothing could be further from the truth. We go to bed each night and think we are in the same space, our bed, but we're not. Where we sleep the night before is quite literally 12 million miles from where we sleep tonight. And that's just in the context of our solar system. If you take into the equation our local galaxy group and its movement, the number is an order of magnitude higher. It's also a different time, so our space-time is perceived as static and routine to our human instrument. And yet, we're in completely different coordinates every moment of our existence, because we're riding a planetary, solar, galactic spaceship. In Lyricus, we have a saying, different space-time, different energy. Different energy, different matter. In other words, if you change your space-time, you encounter different energies, and these different energies influence matter, material existence, and cause changes. In life forms, we call this change growth and aging or memory or life cycles, but it means much more. Let's say that as you go through new space-time, you see your breath as a way to infuse this new, ever-changing space-time into your human instrument and consciousness.
Like quantum pause?
It's an example, yes. Quantum pause is a breathing technique that structures a certain rhythm onto the breathing process to make more awareness of the breath and its integration with the human instrument. You can find it in the paper called Spiritual Activism. You have that paper on which site, Mark?
Let's see. It's on the wingmakers.com website in the What's New section, and people can download it there for free.
It's a good paper for anyone who wants to actively shift into the coming paradigm of interconnectedness, which, as it turns out, is one of the main themes of this conversation. So it's good you brought it up. Now, back to space-time and quantum pause. And by the way, one doesn't need to practice quantum pause if they find it limiting in any way. Conscious breathing will work fine too. You don't need techniques, and even quantum pause can be adapted to your particular needs. So try something and mold it to your own intuitive sense of what's right and what works for you. When you're practicing conscious breathing, feel how it pulls you into the present moment, in this state of nowness. Use your awareness to really feel that you're in a brand new space-time, one you've never been in before, and one that has new energies, new potentialities. Imagine that as you breathe, you are infusing these new energies into your human instrument, and that this is creating within you a sense of openness and flexibility and coherence and clarity that allows you to be more, let's say, resilient and agile and giving and intuitively alive and so on. So breath relates to space-time, and this brings new energetics into your human instrument. These new energetics can be experienced as new behaviors. So energy in this context informs matter, and matter in this context is behavior.
Why is behavioral intelligence so important in the Wingmakers philosophy?
Because seekers are easily confused. One seeker is told that reincarnation does not exist. Another is told the opposite. The two meet and they confuse and confound one another. One seeker is told that God's name is Allah. Another is told there are many different gods. The two meet and confusion results. One person discovers particle physics and another is born again in Jesus. The two meet and they paint each other into isolated corners. My point is, there's very little agreement with words, with what goes on in the mind. Very few people really trust their intuition. They prefer to trust experts. But the problem is that experts don't agree. So confusion results, and no one can feel secure in their beliefs. Behaviors don't care about the mind's opinion. If you can practice the behaviors of conscious breathing, of accessing your heart's virtues and expressing those into your local universe, all of the beliefs, all of the words you can use to describe your beliefs don't really matter. Behavioral intelligence matters. It is a universal language, and it never separates or argues or analyzes. Instead, it applies compassion, appreciation, understanding, love, and so on to all circumstances. Now, some would argue, I'm sure, that this is naive. There is right and wrong, truth and falsehood. For example, either reincarnation is true or it is false. It cannot be both. And if that is the case, then truth must be defended. But you see, this is how one loses their perspective on the important things, like heart virtues, conscious breathing, love, equality, and oneness. We defend our beliefs. We polarize others. We try to be on the right side, the side of the dance floor that stands for truth. But our universe is multidimensional. It has stories encoded within stories within stories. It is, in other words, hypercomplex. It is not knowable with the human mind. So when the human mind seizes a truth and then defends it with the words of so-called experts, it invariably becomes little more than an exercise of the ego. The energy invested in this exercise, it could have been placed on conscious breathing or fostered in a relationship with the universe and creator, and then expressed in behaviors of compassion, forgiveness, appreciation, and so forth. It's interesting to have a philosophical core, to feel that you have a sense of the workings of the universe. But everything we think we know today in terms of cosmology and physics will alter as we change our space-time. Everything. You see, the recitation of philosophy is based on words and mental ideology. Yes, it can change behaviors to be sure, but it doesn't bring the ultra-fine frequencies into the human instrument. Only behaviors that are consistent with the virtues of the heart will purify and prepare the human instrument to perceive the soul or higher self, to see its movements, its perspectives, its insights, its consciousness. So behaviors bring about like a preparation of the human instrument, and these behaviors must be coherent and clear. And the only way they can be of this quality is if they're genuine. You cannot fake this. You cannot practice like a machine. You must be human, vulnerable, open, humble, and willing to learn from yourself more than you're willing to accept the words of another. The only thing that's required is a belief in the human soul, and even that is dubious. And I say dubious only because atheists are able to practice the six heart virtues just fine. They're not encumbered with any kinds of beliefs in soul or God or religious indoctrinations. So I say dubious only in that sense. The soul is present in everyone, regardless of their position in life, their ethnicity, their gender, their belief system, and so on. And it is because of soul that we are all connected. That's the only belief that's really required. If you genuinely believe this, then you can practice with authenticity.
James, many of the emails I see, people are reciting things they've been told by psychics or astrologers, channelers, ETs, Galactic Federation, things of that nature. And sometimes the information seems so detailed that I find myself thinking it must be real. But this whole thing you said about different opinions and mental ideology, it seems to really sweep people off their feet sometimes. And what can a person do to stay centered on the behaviors or the heart virtues themselves?
There are many reasons. people are inundated with conflicting information. It happens in every sphere of life. In the spiritual domain, perhaps most of all, because there's no proof. So a person can tell you that you are a reincarnation of Albert Einstein, or that you are an important incarnation from the planet XYZ, and you cannot prove otherwise. They tend to cater to the ego. This is an age-old problem. Flattery is an ancient form of commerce. It stems from the religious sectors because they have pounded into the human psyche that we're all sinners. We're constantly sinning and require salvation. So when someone tells you that you're an angel or a powerful being, it's very seductive. And while it's true at the level of soul that you are a powerful being, it's not a thing of ego gratification. It's more responsibility. It's a thing of service, not satisfaction. I'll say this. When someone tells you about you, what you're gifted in, where you came from, what your personality is or isn't, and you paid the money for this information, I would take their input to your heart and really review its value to you. The more detailed their information, the more you should probably be skeptical, from my perspective at least. You see, detail is used to seduce. It's like the film industry. I watched the film The Life of Pi a few months ago, and the Siberian tiger is produced digitally, and yet there were many times I found myself believing it was a real tiger. The amount of detail is what convinced me to suspend my disbelief, to accept the illusion. So it is with external inputs. Detail sells the input. The point is, where you came from or what you've done or accomplished in the past, it doesn't really matter. That's time-based. You're always shifting in space-time. You're always capable of connecting with the universe, creator, source intelligence. You can summon this higher consciousness within you and transmit it to those in your local universe. You can be a student of your heart. If you fill your mind and ego with all of these personal details of your past self or future self, what does it provide you? Clarity or confusion? I can assure you that if you can get 10 readings from 10 different sources, you will be confused. The overlap will be 10, 20% perhaps, and the rest will be divergent and impossible to decode into a meaningful picture of purpose. So I would advise spiritual seekers to place their attention on behavioral intelligence. Practice this. Don't fill your mind with complex details to confuse and confound and separate. Behavioral intelligence is what you're here to learn and express.
How does conscious breathing help in developing one's behavioral intelligence?
Well, let's say I practice quantum pause, and while I'm breathing, I become conscious of the new space-time I'm in, that unique part of the universe that my local universe intersects with in that exact moment. I choose to breathe in the feelings of compassion. Every breath I inhale, I imagine it to be compassion, which is to say that any in-breath can be imbued with virtue. I summon it to my human instrument and let it saturate me like an internal waterfall. You could be in a jail cell or a villa in the south of France. The space-time that intersects your local universe can be modified by you. You are the alchemist, the creator. You can use your imaginative powers to imbue your in-breath with a virtue like compassion or forgiveness or humility or valor or understanding or joy or love or whatever you would like. You are the creator, and the new space-time is your canvas. The new energy fields that flow through you are carriers, and as they sweep through your local universe, your energy field, they carry it to others, and the distance they're carried is not bound to Earth or limited.
So you're saying our personal energy field affects the larger fields, even beyond our Earth?
Well, you can look at it this way, Mark. The human instrument is a little like a factory. It has a body, brain, a central nervous system, and other organs. These are the physical aspects, the foundation of the factory, if you will. Then you have the heart and mind, and together these co-create emotions and behaviors. The heart and mind are like the employees, and the emotions and behaviors are like the products. And then you have the soul, the spiritual essence of the individual, the God spark. This is like the customer, the one who uses the products that the factory makes. Sometimes, if a factory produces products that are of low frequency, dense energy, the soul or customer doesn't use the product. It can't use it. It's like buying a device that was designed for a different voltage. It just doesn't plug into the wall. The emotions are the product of how the heart and mind operate together in coherence. If the mind is prayerful and contemplative and receptive, summoning the universe for support and so on, the mind is then engaged with the heart, because this kind of mindfulness attracts the attention of the heart. It begets behaviors that are intelligent. And what do I mean by that? Behavioral intelligence is the ability to self-manage the coherence of the mind and heart, and to do that, to create emotions that are balanced and resilient. This isn't about sentimental emotions or passionate reactions to the wrongs committed by the powers that be, as if we need to start a revolution. Rather, it's a steadfast inner conviction to seek the expression of the heart virtues in every affair of our lives. I want to be clear. Heart virtues are not emotions. They're not thoughts. They're behaviors. The heart's intuitive inputs, coupled to the higher mind's insights on how to express the virtues for a given situation, these are the chefs that create the behavior of virtue and then take it to market. Similarly, you could have the lower mind or ego mind create a behavior based on an emotional reaction. And this behavior would be very different because the creator is very different. The soul doesn't see how to utilize or become aligned to this behavior. So in a way, it retreats, it allows. It's unheard and unnoticed by the human instrument. Behavioral intelligence is all about raising awareness, not only in oneself, but those around you as well. Raising awareness not through words, but behaviors that are based on words or thoughts that are virtuous and stem from the innermost part of ourselves.
Okay, so you're saying that emotions are co-created by the heart and mind, but where's the soul in this equation?
The soul is everywhere. It's only a question of whether it's engaged, active, interactive in the behaviors of the individual. When the deeper heart and higher mind are operating as one to create behaviors that are aligned with soul, the soul engages. It's strongly present. If the shallow heart and lower mind are fighting one another to create behaviors, the soul disengages. As I said, it cannot come through the muddy waters, stirred up by this kind of ego-mindedness.
So why is the soul so passive? I mean, couldn't it just, I don't know, get people to wake up and work more in alignment to itself?
If you're creating behaviors from the interaction of the shallow heart and lower mind, you've chosen to shut down your connection to soul. It's like someone who has this huge natural world that they live in with mountains and valleys and rivers, but they go into a small cabin, lock the doors, close the blinds, and lay in their bed in the dark. How does the natural world reach them?
Maybe a storm?
Well, yes, a storm might reach them, but it also might make them even less comfortable to open up and seek the world of soul. Everyone opens up differently and is motivated by different things to seek their soul. A soul that's persistently magnetic, but sometimes the person is so crystallized in their beliefs that it's impossible to impress upon them, because as it is often said, the soul moves in mysterious ways, and the person who is crystallized in the belief of a secular nihilistic world, for example, may not notice the calling of their soul. Let me be clear about one thing. I've mentioned people who have a belief in nihilism or atheism, and I'm not saying that these people operate from the shallow heart and lower mind. They can believe that there is no God and the universe is uncaring, and they can still be operating from the higher mind and deeper heart. Similarly, you can have someone who's steeped in the belief of God and soul, but they operate in the shallow heart and lower mind. Belief systems are not the catalyst of behavioral intelligence. It can be a factor, but it's not the factor. As I said before, we live in complex, multidimensional worlds, and one factor does not dictate or rule. It can only influence. It's easy to think the sacred and secular are polar opposites, but they're really elements of the same experience of raising one's awareness, so we can embody virtuous behaviors in our lives. And what our belief system is, or how much we profess to worship God or care about our soul's well-being, those are not the keys. The keys, as it has always been, is behavioral intelligence. Behavioral intelligence is the way to interact with the universe. It's not the only way, it's the advanced way. Everyone has the potential to experience this interaction. Most people are taught and told that the universe is a dark, lifeless expanse of empty space. This is out of ignorance. Even our finest minds can only identify about 2% of our physical universe. The rest is dark matter and dark energy, and they don't understand what this is, how it operates, where it comes from. And other than its gravitational characteristics, it remains a complete and utter mystery. Look at it this way. A first source, or God, or creator, or universe, however you wish to think about it, broadcasts its intelligent energy to all it is, as source intelligence or spirit. And the spirit is everywhere, including each of us. It streams through us. It is dynamic. It's ever-changing. It has abilities to respond to us just as we can respond to it. In other words, it's interactive. When we play an interactive game on Nintendo or a computer or smartphone, we're interacting with the game design, hoping to make it to checkpoints and to continue to higher levels of challenge, to complete the game and get a good or high score. In interaction with source intelligence, it's different. It's not about high scores or completing the game. It's about finding a way to raise awareness within yourself in such a way that you can create and express the heart virtues in your life unconditionally. You can modulate them with control. You can combine and sequence them in meaningful expressions that relate to specific situations as they occur. You can bring your higher mind and deepest heart into alignment and service to source intelligence, and you do this consciously, willingly, with care and genuineness. This is the interaction that one has with the universe, and you will learn over time as you practice this that the universe listens, it responds, it rearranges itself. I don't mean this literally, but the outpicturing of the universe as it pertains to your local universe is not a mechanical wind-up toy that pursues its mission unperturbed by a single human field of consciousness. It is quite the opposite. The human field, both individually and collectively, shapes the universe expression on Earth. And I don't mean the position of stars or planets or weather systems, etc. I mean right down to the particulars of who enters or exits your life, your work, your mission, your emotional interactions with people, what you read and study. All of these things, to name just a few, are part of the complex nature of how the universe responds to your fields, what you express through your human instrument. So, in a way, if you wanted to humanize it, you could say that you and God are partners. The more you see the value of this partnership, the more you can feel and see the results of the interaction.
This is that concept that there's no coincidence. Everything is purposeful and interwoven.
Not really. That concept is more passive, where you see the world's events as being guided by a wiser hand, and you surrender to its urges, motivations, insights, and will. The surrender is an act of passivity. Interaction, on the other hand, is a partnership. Energy is exchanged, not simply accepted. Missions are co-created and even co-founded. There's self-responsibility in the interaction and partnership. There's a feedback system. The universe is not an authoritarian.
Okay, but given that we're always changing our position within the universe, in terms of space-time, everything's dynamic and complex, and we're, well, we're human with all of our flaws and limited vision on what's going on. It seems like surrender to a higher power is, maybe not such a bad idea.
The passive approach denies the interaction and partnership. It limits the role of the human instrument. For example, I'm a leaf on the river. That is surrender. I'm an artist with a paintbrush and canvas, with a powerful muse to inspire me. That is interaction. So everything that's complex seemingly shouts to us, you're out of your depth. Those are the fears of self-responsibility. So most people either surrender to the culture or to the creator. Let me give you an example. I knew a person who was haunted by a past very negative experience, something that she couldn't forgive. I told her that forgiveness was her key, but it had to be unconditional, to which she said it just wasn't possible. She needed the person to admit their mistake and apologize. But I said she might have to wait a long time. If she forgave them unconditionally, she didn't have to wait. She looked at me and said, only Jesus can forgive unconditionally, not regular people like her. That was her perspective, that expressing the heart virtues unconditionally was reserved for the likes of Jesus. It isn't reserved for anyone. Anyone can do it. Anyone cannot do it. There's no reservation system either way. It's choice. It's a partnership with the universe. It's seeing the value for oneself to lead instead of to follow another, to be active instead of passive.
Why is it so hard to practice these virtues like forgiveness unconditionally? I think most of us know what this woman means. Sometimes it seems impossible to operate unconditionally.
You see, the majority of people are gridlocked inside their heads, mostly on the left side and mostly down in the reptilian brain. It's easy to do. The culture creators make it easy for us to live in that part of our human instrument and base our decisions and belief system from there. Then we think in our lower minds, and our heart's guidance is shallow. In this state, ego decisions, ego-driven decisions, I'll say, aligned to the culture are what we tend to rely on. When the ego is driving the decisions, then the idea of unconditional forgiveness or compassion or appreciation, it's nearly impossible.
And why is that?
Because this is the long path, the path of self-responsibility. Most people want to get rewarded quickly. They want to see results quickly. They want to win accolades fast. In this time more than ever before, because technology delivers answers quickly with a voice command to Siri or a mouse click on Google. Solutions now. The faster the solution, the more the ego is gratified. The quick solution, however, doesn't bring a real sense of wisdom or inner competence. There's like a hollowness to it, a fabrication. To secure that sense of wisdom, you have to be willing to persist and be committed to the long path, where you're the conductor of the symphonic emotions created by your deeper heart and higher mind. In a way, you're a conductor. The left arm is your deeper heart, and the right arm is your higher mind. And together they conduct the music we call emotions. If they operate in coherence, they create music, not noise or distortion. Most people, when they conduct their emotions, the two arms do not conduct as one. They flail their arms and they are out of sync, and the emotions are expressed accordingly. Sometimes stress will do this, sometimes drugs, sometimes old habits, sometimes sheer exhaustion. Sometimes the culture seems to shout, do it this way. There are many, many reasons, which is why it's so important to practice something like the heart virtues so that you can regain your balance when you slip on the banana peel. The long path is not for those who are bound to the needs of the ego, because it's the ego that craves quick mastery, quick results, and the actual benefit of those quick results to others is not the concern or objective. It's the rewards of vanity and glamour. and their various manifestations that truly motivate the ego.
Many paths, have that the mind as the key aspect of spiritual discovery, and you speak about the ego, which is an aspect of the mind. Is this why the long path is difficult? Because the mind being the centerpiece.
The mind seeks causes. It's a cause and effect calculator in many ways. The ego seeks to be associated with causes like climate change, political parties, religion or culture, or gun control or child protection, etc. The list is very long. Almost everything is a cause-related activity, and the mind loves being part of something that's evolving an agenda that the mind agrees or resonates with. It also allows a sense of community, the cause itself. When the Wingmakers materials were released, I know many people wondered why I chose to remain anonymous, but Lyricus is not an earthly organization. There's nothing to join for a reason. There's no cause we are trying to achieve.
Yeah, but isn't the discovery of the Grand Portal a cause?
No, it's not. The Grand Portal is a technological discovery, and it'll be made not as a cause-based effort, but it'll be a discovery that'll erupt out of thin air, where no one predicted, and those who discover it won't really understand what they discovered until others step in and demonstrate its importance. The cause will then begin as the controllers try to contain it, hide it, cover it up in fear, and then the cause will be centered on nurturing the technology and making it available to all. There are organizations on Earth right now who are quietly working towards this discovery, but they lack the resources to realize their ambitions. The discovery will be made by well-funded organizations that are pursuing a different objective. They'll make the discoveries by accident, and those lesser-funded organizations will incorporate the discoveries and repurpose them. So the discovery itself isn't a cause-based initiative, but once the discovery is made and solidified, protecting it and distributing it to the public domain, then it will become a cause then.
You mean the scientific discovery of the human soul, right?
Yes, I was going to mention in one of your previous questions that Lyricus sees the mind and heart operating in unison. One is not the guide and the other the follower. They're co-creating the ability within the individual to incubate the sovereign individual consciousness, to nurture it. This is the consciousness of unity and equality, coupled to individualism that isn't ego-based. It's the consciousness that's being born on Earth, and the Grand Portal is the technological force that will help to unleash its presence to humanity.
I know you've written about this in the Lyricus materials, but why would anyone want to cover up the existence of the human soul? I can understand why the controllers would want to cover up ETs or black projects, but the soul, why would they try to cover that up?
Because it's the habit of the controllers to control. Whenever new discoveries are made, they're quickly assessed for their ability to change the existing power structure, either in a good way, or in other words, to enhance control, or in a bad way, to diminish control.
But if the controllers are suppressing humanity's chance to grow spiritually, how does humanity ever get out of the control?
The controllers are part of the system of ascendancy. They're not controlling the system. The system is vast. It's a network that extends everywhere and to everyone. No one group or entity is controlling it. They simply think they control a very small part of the system called material Earth. Even this they don't really control. You can take the internet for an example. The controllers initially thought the internet would be useful to control educational innovation via ARPANET. And then they thought it would present a communication infrastructure within the military-industrial complex via DARPANET. What they didn't see was the spillover into the life of citizens. An effect of capitalism did that. When the World Wide Web entered the picture, they were hopeful that it'd stay in the business domain, banking and industry and so on. But as we know, it's the global communication system. And now the controllers have adapted to try and use it for surveillance and personal data acquisition and banking and so on. But the controllers never wanted the internet. premise that humanity is crippled in its ability to grow spiritually because of the controllers is simply false. They make it more challenging, which is the way the system is designed. Souls don't incarnate into a human instrument to experience ease and spiritual bliss. They experience this separation from source intelligence willingly. They know it will be a challenge to navigate to their soul and deeper heart when they incarnate. They know it will be a challenge to learn to express the higher frequencies of the heart unconditionally in this world. But they also know that there will be help.
And in what form is this help offered? I mean, where does it come from, and how do people recognize it?
The help is everywhere. It isn't one thing or one organization or religion. Help is everywhere. It's really the perception and the attitude of the individual that makes the difference. It's in all things. So when the individual is ready, they see something or feel something or learn something that wakes them up. It activates them to seek their higher self. And where this wake-up call comes from varies tremendously for each person. But once they awaken, they'll seek what is hidden from them. They know instinctively it's hidden. The truth is veiled. They might not call the controllers by name or title, but they know they exist, even while they don't like to admit it.
Why is that, James? I know many people who get pretty uncomfortable the moment you start, to talk about these subjects that pertain to the controllers.
It's a bit scary, unnerving. For most people, it's too hard to believe that the world is suppressed, that it's held back so that humanity is easier to control and more compliant to the system. These are old concepts. They've been on this planet for thousands of years, and very few of sound mind doubt this reality. So, as a coping mechanism, they prefer to avoid the discussion. And it's perfectly fine that they do. There's not so much to be gained from talking about it and letting the subject irritate you. The question becomes, as a truth seeker, how much emphasis to place on it, because in the extreme, it can lead to fear and frustration and even a sense of paranoia. And these conditions clearly diminish the ability of the individual to express love into their local universe. And this is their first priority for their incarnation.
I'm glad you mentioned that word love. I've received emails from people wondering why it isn't mentioned in the 6 heart virtues. Can you talk about that?
Yes, it's analogous to asking why white light isn't mentioned in the rainbow. You see, love is the 6 heart virtues. Love is a dynamic mixture of these 6 expressions. Love is understanding, compassion, appreciation, humility, forgiveness, and valor. It's the situational awareness and expression of these in your moment, not only to other humans, but also to plants and animals, creator, earth, universe, source, intelligence, even yourself. Excuse me. Just going to take a little drink of water. As space-time shifts and changes, new energetics are encountered. And these energetics can either be accelerators or they can be brakes on consciousness. In periods of acceleration, change is occurring at a more rapid pace. So love is even more important. But love is paraded to the heart virtues with authenticity. This is why authentic love at this time is the only requirement of a belief system.
I'm not sure I understood that. What do you mean by authentic love?
Love is the situational expression of the heart virtues, and to do this unconditionally, you must be authentic in your expression. So for anyone to profess that they follow the 6 heart virtues, there's a responsibility to be authentic practitioners. Otherwise, your belief isn't practiced, and if that's the case, why have a belief? So you see that this choice to have a love-centered life is a responsibility. If you resonate with the heart virtues, if you understand their value, not only in your life and those of your immediate friends and family, the broadest definition of oneness, then you also understand that they must be practiced unconditionally. Otherwise, they're a mere convenience. Their potency is in their unconditional expression and awareness.
You've used that term a couple of times, situational awareness. Can you explain what you mean?
The heart virtues come to you, and you're expressing them. Situational awareness in this context is simply being perceptive of their entry into your local universe in the moment. Sometimes it's very obvious, sometimes it's very subtle, almost undetectable. It's important to perceive what you're being given unconditionally as much as it is to express unconditionally. You could call it precognitive appreciation. Your in-breath is an example that brings you life. Water is another example. A kind word from a colleague is another example. The list is very long. So you become adept at sensing how the universe and your local universe is bringing you virtues, even when they appear not to be present. That's the unconditional part, the heart part. But everything in this world is about cycles and ratios, and these always modulate and shift in space-time. That's why I call it precognitive awareness. Sometimes you have to imagine the virtues even when they're seemingly absent. They will come in time.
James, it seems like the world's dysfunction grows in many ways. Take the example of the economy or terrorism or the natural disasters. The acceleration energies, if that's the right way to express it, have been growing strong the past year. It's as if someone's turning up the heat in the kitchen and we're all feeling the added stress, which makes it harder to be appreciative or practice the heart virtues, at least speaking for myself. Some say it's the shadow governments, some will point to reptilians or off-planetary intelligence.
Controllers are human. They're influenced from other sources, but they're human and they make the ultimate decisions. This is greed and power amplified by technology. Technology provides the accelerated and fine-grained perceptions that enable greed and power to be boundless, at least for those who have access to the technologies. This creates imbalance, and imbalance creates energetic incoherence, and this incoherence creates a sense of restlessness, bordering on anarchy. And this signals the controllers to apply new technologies, new laws to clamp down and degenerate culture to distract. This escalates the problem and recycles the discontent and stress. Yes, it's harder now to be a practitioner, especially when the incoherence spikes in an event that's designed to tighten controls or train people to be compliant to the controllers. However, Earth at this time is a training ground for those who want to exercise their will and make a difference, energetically and materially. If humanity wants sustainable peace and goodwill to all in practice, it will need to restructure its organizations that the controllers use to control. To do this requires a watershed event like the Grand Portal, and even then, it's never easy. However, if there was no darkness or resistance, what purpose would new light serve?
Are you saying that darkness is that it's allowed so new generations that are incarnating can have a purpose? I'm not sure I follow you there.
I'm saying that the controllers have a designed purpose that allows each and every human being to either succumb to the controls and live conditionally in the ego mind, or receive and transmit the deeper heart and higher mind frequencies and live unconditionally as a love-centered life. The latter is the goal of most people that are incarnated at this time. And even though it may seem that people are failing to achieve this goal everywhere you look, it's not really true. They fail some, to be sure, but they're aware of this goal inside themselves, and this represents a major shift.
You mean that most people are aware that they're here to live a love-centered life?
But this isn't obvious to most people, and I understand this. But if you could look at humanity as a factory that's making two products, one is hate and one is love, the ratio of love to hate has shifted remarkably in the last 50 years. In just the last 5 years, it went through another major shift, and this is now the tempo that we're in. Love is dominant on this planet. The controllers would like to make it seem that the world is in turmoil and fear, but that's an illusion that they present through the media. Fear doesn't dominate. Love is the dominant frequency on this planet, and it will remain so. However, fear is not something that I'm suggesting will go away anytime soon. It will always be alive in this domain, and all who have human instruments will feel its effects until they experience their souls in the continuity of life.
James, I know you said this many times, that the era of transparency is upon us, and that this is why, the grand portal can be achieved. But part of me wonders why Lyricus doesn't just make it happen now.
These things must be done by contemporary humanity. It has to be an inside job. Outside forces can't intervene.
Why?
Because free will is the most precious thing in the universe. The moment one group begins to impose and intercede on behalf of one population, then it becomes a game of chess played by the most powerful, the most aware of the big picture. And as I said before, this is the time of we the people. This isn't the time of saviors. The era of transparency requires it.
You said before that what holds true for the big picture holds true for the small picture. In other words, as above, so below. Can you speak to that?
I'll give you an example. This is related to the crutches or devices that people rely upon. These are like our personal saviors. We need a device to synchronize our brain waves, or we need special diets or teachers to guide us, or I must read this or that book to fully understand my soul. No, I'll tell you right now, no, we don't. We need to practice the virtues of the heart, and we need to form a partnership with the universe. We do these things without condition, without seeing results, as we define results. We live in balance and oneness. We develop our ability to orchestrate the virtues of the heart, but more than anything, it comes down to us, to our commitment to practice, our commitment to apply these unconditionally and not simply talk about them. For example, let's say you found a device that synchronized your brain waves. You felt wonderful. You experienced a higher dimension or alternative consciousness. In the back of your mind, after the experience, you realize it's an unnatural occurrence. It was not generated solely from your efforts. It was not your creation. It was a device. Or let's say you take a pill and it would provide you with ESP or a God experience or to talk with an ET. What does this really do for you? The long path, the path that's founded in source intelligence, isn't about saviors. It is about self-responsibility and activation. It's about learning to receive and transmit the ultra-fine frequencies of love in your moment to the best of your abilities, even when you judge yourself a failure. You practice forgiveness and understanding. Do you have the flashy experiences? Well, maybe not. But I would much rather be an alchemist than an explorer.
What do you mean by an alchemist?
If your human instrument is fear-based, locked in the rigidity of the left reptilian brain, you're more likely to broadcast fear and insecurity and depression, for example. These emotions are a form of energy, and like all energy, they are conserved. In a sense, energy is never created. It is transformed or recycled. I can take energy that is dense and closed, and I can transform it to an energy that is opening to the frequency of love. I can be an alchemist of energy. And instead of trying to turn iron into gold, I turn anger into kindness, or depression into interconnection, or indifference into compassion. Energy then informs matter. Energy is many things by human standards. It can be physical energy used to produce something like work or to play a sport. It can be emotional energy that deals with love or anger. It can be a mental energy that helps us solve a problem or capitalize on an opportunity. It can be a spiritual energy that activates and sustains our interest in the culture of soul. These different types of energies have different frequencies. Some are condensed energies that are heavy, in a sense. Some are light. We've all felt these different energetic fields in rooms or public spaces or nature, and we've all felt them within ourselves. Sometimes we're buoyant and joyful, and the energy, at least emotionally, is light and easy. Other times we're heavy with disappointment or fear or frustration. We feel these energies. They're not abstractions to us or words on paper. They have a visceral reality in our local universe. Being an alchemist is being able to transform energy, to shift energy, not to let densities build up and calcify, because these are the things that weigh us down and make our abilities to be alchemists for ourselves and others more difficult. Explorers, on the other hand, like to acquire information, knowledge, data, and of course experiences. This can be wonderful, so I'm not saying this is good or bad, merely that it's a different path. They are seekers. They seek knowledge so they can experience a state that's closer to truth, closer to wisdom. This world seems to hide truth so well. Many people feel it's vital that they put a lot of energy into this endeavor. Otherwise, truth will slip away from them. I refer to these seekers as explorers. However, behind this acquisition of knowledge gnaws the question, is this really why I came here? Is this why I incarnated? To acquire knowledge? Especially, as I mentioned before, when the knowledge is often contradictory or lacks any grounding in fact or proof. For some, the answer is yes. For many, though, the answer is that they came to be alchemists. They came to experience the transformation of energies. They incarnated to become receiver and a transmitter of these higher energies, and to go about this consciously, courageously, and most important, unconditionally, to their best ability in the moment. As you can imagine, these are not exclusive paths by any means. People can do both, and very often the seeker-explorer becomes primarily an alchemist in the latter part of their life. The explorer fills up all the various paths and ultimately realizes that they're all tributaries to the long path. And the real reason to be alive is to demonstrate the example of an alchemist. Again, it's all ratios. There's never a 100% one or the other.
Are there other stages or categories?
Not a big advocate of categorizing people, of course. So with that caveat, I'll say that the activators are a group of seekers. And what I mean by that is that they're looking for stimulation, not so much about information or knowledge, though again, this is ratios. They tend to be younger. They tend to be experimental in their approach to the spiritual world, and often find psychic phenomenon or charismatic teachers to be the gateway for them to learn about the worlds of spirit. They're interested in having the direct experience because they're looking to activate their missions or spiritual purpose.
Any others?
And the sleepers come in many varieties. Sleepers, the word sounds a bit judgmental, I suppose, and I really don't mean it that way. The sleepers have their purpose, and often they can be one book or one experience away from being a great alchemist. They just need the activation. Sometimes sleepers have seen a lot of paths, a lot of teachers, and nothing quite took. Nothing was convincing, or perhaps they found a corruption in their organization or noticed that their teacher was less than impeccable. They had a bad experience in their pursuit of the spiritual dimension, and they went back to sleep seeking familiar comfort in the material world and trying to reimagine their life as an ego-driven personality. Sleepers can also be content to conform to the social order, so they accept the world as a place where the acquisition of material objects is king. But sleepers know that something is missing, and that's proof.
Proof of what?
That the world is only three-dimensional, physical, and that consumption is king. They wonder why most of the world's population believes in God, but behave as if there isn't one. They wonder why saints exist, why mystics write similar materials throughout time, why some have experienced these alternate realities, or some have astonishing skills that can't be accounted for. Often they've had ESP experiences or events themselves, and they can't explain it. There's a very long list of things that poke and prod the sleepers to wonder if they should remain asleep. Proof in this case isn't that God exists, it's proof that God or a spiritual domain doesn't exist. The last group I'll mention is the absentees. These are the ones whose incarnation was disrupted by some event or series of events that placed them on a trajectory of pain or guilt or resentment, anger, fear, etc. They became lost to both the material and spiritual worlds, and they burrowed into their own worlds for safety, or so they thought. Often these are fantasy or imaginary worlds that are neither real nor helpful to their missions as embodied souls. There are others, but these will give you a general sense of the different groups. And again, one person can be in all of these groups, and the ratios can shift over time. Others can be in one group predominantly, and something comes along in their life, and they suddenly migrate to a new group. But the group to which the Wingmakers are aligned, at least mostly aligned, is the alchemist. Because there you can be a potent force for good. There you can impact on an entire planet because you're in a trusting partnership with source intelligence that lives inside the heart virtues. And you don't need to believe in God or religion or a master. You simply need to practice the virtues of your own heart and your own life in the moment. It's really that simple. Though the practice is challenging, the process itself is kind of modest, without adornments or rituals or techniques other than the ones you create for yourself.
James, I want to be respectful of your time. This interview's already gone over the time I had, asked for. So, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we come to a close?
Well, let me just say, Mark, that I enjoyed our conversation. I know it went a little longer, and I apologize. That's for me. I start talking sometimes, and it's difficult to stop. I think I said everything I needed to. Perhaps we can do this again.
Yeah, every 5 years or so, you mean?
Well, maybe we can do them a little more frequently.
I hope so.
Thanks for your help, Mark, and putting this interview together. Goodbye.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for your time, James.